News 18 Network and Electral present Hydration for Health, Season 2.
Hello and a very warm welcome to our special presentation, Electral presents Hydration for Health Season 2. July 29th, as World ORS Day, is an annual observance established to honor the groundbreaking research conducted in the 1960s by Dr. David Nullin, Dr. Dilip Mahalanobis, and Dr. Richard Cash. Their studies demonstrated the effectiveness of a simple mixture of salts and glucose known as oral rehydration solution, the ORS, in treating dehydration caused by diarrhea. Now, this discovery revolutionized the management of diarrhea related dehydration, especially in developing countries where diarrhea is a major cause of illness and death, particularly among infants and young children. The World Health Organization endorsed ORS as a vital tool for managing diarrhea and dehydration, leading to the launch of a global program by WHO and UNICEF in 1971 to promote the use of ORS. And World ORS Day serves to raise awareness about the life saving potential of ORS and promote its widespread use to prevent dehydration related complications and deaths. To know more about the same, joining me today on this very special presentation, Dr. Indu Khosla, MD DCH RCPCH Fellow in Pediatric Pulmonology, Consultant Pediatrician and Pulmonologist, Dr. Raj Tilak, MBBS, MD Pediatrics, Consultant Pediatrician and Pulmonologist, Dr. Hemant Jain, ex-professor and head of pediatrics, MGM Medical College, Indore. Welcome to the show, doctors. Dr. Indu, as we start our discussion, can we start by first understanding what is oral rehydration solution or ORS and what is its significance?
So typically an oral rehydration salt or a solution is used for illnesses like diarrhea, though there are many other indications, but it is used for diarrhea when you lose water from your body. So you lose water, you lose salt, you like sodium, like potassium, like chloride. When you lose all this, you lose also your body becomes acidic. You need an oral rehydration solution to again rejuvenate you or get you back. So that is what is oral rehydration solution. The composition of this oral rehydration solution, it contains sodium, it contains potassium, it contains chloride, it contains glucose, and it contains something called as sodium citrate to get back the acidic balance in the body. All this is dissolved in water to make a solution which is correctly osmolar to suit the body. So this is what is oral rehydration solution.
Right, doctor. Dr. Tilak, if I may get you in, how important is it for an individual to understand the right constitution of ORS and how it has to be consumed? For any portion of salt, sugar, and water mixture doesn't help, right? How critical is it to ensure the absolute right dose?
I think this is paramount to have the correct dose in which it is administered and in the dose it is purchased. For there is a specific key to every lock. Every key does not open up every lock. So there can be other misleading brands also in the market, but one which is specified by World Health Organization as insignia, which WHO written on the packet is only the correct proportion of the ingredients which Dr. Indu just spelled, and it is only the correct proportion of these salts which ultimately give you the desired results. If the composition of salts or its dilution is not appropriate to your needs during the disease condition, instead of rehydrating, it may even dehydrate you and take away further water from your body and make the situation worse. So the correct composition is very, very necessary. It needs to be purchased with the specification of WHO ORS, and there are two types of packets available in the market. One, which is large in size, need to be dissolved in 1 liter of clear fluid, clear water, which is wholesome and hygienic, while the small pack is meant for dissolution in 200 ml, that is about 1 glass of water. And then there is a third combination also present where it is ready to drink, already prepared in a Tetra pack available to you. So take any of these and not one which does not contain the insignia of World Health Organization.
Dr. Jen, if I go to now the usage of ORS, what are the various causes leading to dehydration and how ORS acts on it?
The commonest cause of dehydration is second to diarrhea, is one of the commonest cause of mortality in India. It's the third common cause of mortality under 5 years of age, and the second important cause of mortality worldwide. And India has got more than 60% cases of diarrhea deaths in, if you take it as globally. And the standard WHO ORS was started globally by WHO in year 1980, and the low osmolality WHO formula was started in 2003, and this was helpful in reducing both the severity and the loss of solute, and it reduced vomiting. So this is now what WHO is recommending now, and has been responsible for death rate which has reduced almost by 97% secondary to diarrhea. So all credit goes to this wonderful drug, which is a life-saving drug, and it goes by the name of ORS. So the diarrhea remains as one of the commonest cause. The second common cause of dehydration, which we see in a day-to-day practice, is secondary to high-grade fever. And each degree of fever more than 38 degrees centigrade requires 10% more fluid intake. So it's not only the loss of fluid which occurs secondary to sweating from the skin, which also loses water as well as solute, but it also causes a decrease in the intake. And these two things compound to cause dehydration. And if we don't treat this dehydration by oral fluid like ORS, it's going to compound the injury in the body. And therefore, uh, use of ORS as early as possible, either an ORS or a homemade remedy, are two important things in reducing the burden of dehydration in a febrile illness. The third common condition will be vomiting, which causes a lot of fluid and electrolytes from the body. And the fourth will be some miscellaneous causes like say burn, which again causes of because of breach of the skin, it leads to loss of fluid from the body. So these are the four common causes in which ORS, if used judiciously at the right time in a right proportion, will be life saving in these conditions.
If I may add
Right.
something here,
Yeah, ma'am, go ahead.
I would think that children, when they fall sick, they become, they generally do not consume anything. It's very difficult to feed a sick child. So any child who's very sick, whose consumption has gone down, and that is a very common indication where we can rehydrate these children orally. So the aim here is to rehydrate them orally rather than getting them through the intravenous route, which has its own complications, and it requires hospitalizations. As rightly pointed out by Dr. Hemant, that India still has a large number of diarrheal deaths. In fact, it is the third common cause of under 5 mortality in the country even today. Though we have come a long way, we still have a long way to go. And about 10% of children today still die with diarrheal deaths. And a survey carried out recently showed that only about 40 to 50% of children who have diarrhea actually consume ORS. So there is a gap still, right? So therefore, we need to push it first and foremost for diarrhea itself, because still many children are still not the parental education may be lacking, awareness may be lacking, and access may be lacking, I don't know. So therefore still they do not understand that it's a simple tool to prevent diarrhea and dehydration, deaths due to dehydration because of diarrhea. So still today in our country, about 10% of children who develop diarrhea will die, and they die predominantly because of dehydration. And it's such a simple tool which can prevent diarrheal deaths.
Dr. Indu, we have now understood about oral rehydration solution. The obvious question that comes to our mind is with regards to diarrhea and children. And we just spoke about that when you said that it is much easier to administer ORS versus giving anything intravenous. However, a lot of times it so happens that parents um, act only when it is an emergency situation. So, when is it important to seek medical attention in diarrheal dehydration and not treat it lightly?
When an episode of diarrhea starts, it initially the child will not get dehydrated. But if the diarrhea is profuse, continuous, or the child is persistently vomiting, that is how, and the intake is poor, that is the time the child will land up with dehydration. So I would think that any child who gets diarrhea initially should be put onto ORS so as to prevent the level of dehydration. So in mild to moderate dehydration, you can definitely get away with giving oral rehydration salts. But if the child is vomiting, if the child's consumption is very, very poor, even if you try to give ORS and the child is not taking it. Thirdly, if the child is having altered sensorium, when I say altered sensorium, that the child is not conscious enough to take orally. And therefore, if you give a child who is not conscious, he may actually vomit more and it may go into his lungs, which is called as aspiration, which can make things worse. A child who is totally obtunded, who is hemodynamically not stable, meaning thereby his pulses are weak and he's in a shock-like state. That occurs in diarrheas like cholera or severe diarrhea or rapid dehydration. Now, these are kids where we cannot give ORS and we need to definitely take them to a hospital for examination and probably administration of IV fluids. We may have children who have other pathologies, like, say, where their intestines are blocked. So, even if these children take orally, they will either vomit or they will not consume it. So, these are kids, again, we need to keep in hospitals for IV fluids and administration. Anywhere where the parents are not literate enough, not educated enough, and we cannot depend upon them to take care of the child who's having persistent diarrhea. Again, I would say that this child may be given ORS, but in a supervised situation in a hospital. It has been found in various studies that children from lower socioeconomic strata, children where there are multiple children in the house, these are kids who have more likelihood of complications. Children with severe infective diarrhea. So there, of course, you apart from ORS, you need to probably give antibiotics, or you may need to give other adjuvants like zinc, etc. Children who are severely malnourished and who have diarrhea have a lower reserve, and these are kids who would go down very quickly, and again these kids should be in the hospital.
Dr. Tilak, if I may come to you now, ORS is synonymous with diarrhea mostly because of how it was pushed in developing countries. But can you share any success stories or real life examples to tell our audience how is it a lifesaver in all forms of dehydration and not just diarrhea?
Let me answer you by saying that ORS is a definite solution for development of dehydration in the body. And the dehydration is actual threat. Now, dehydration means actually loss of fluid from the body, which can be from various portals. It can be through vomiting, it can be in loose motions, it can be through sweats. And in sweating, you may come across situations wherein you are exposed to high heat, like heat stress, heat hyperthermia. And then there can also be a situation where you have paucity of fluid. That means you have dehydration inside your blood vessels. But the fluid might have shifted to the other parts of the body where it is actually not required. So, this is a strange situation where you are not losing fluid outside the body, but inside the body there is a dehydration that exists. And the very valid example in this season is dengue fever, where there is third space shift of the fluid. Our first line of management in such situations is to ask the person to start with oral rehydration salt solution even at his home, and continue doing it while in the hospital also, so that we do not suffer from high viscosity of blood and thereby the attended complications because of it. Dengue patients are saved in large numbers by use of oral rehydration solution to begin with as soon as the process is diagnosed to be dengue, even in anticipation of what can happen to this child in later times. And there large number of cases are saved. About 40% lives of diarrheal deaths are saved just because of this simple solution, which is paramount and is second to none. This is the chief, I would rate as number one thing which is so cost effective and which is so very effective.
Dr. Jain, we just discussed about ORS becoming a standard secondary treatment for all forms of diarrhea and also other dehydration forms and how it is helping in other illnesses. But very few talk about its effectiveness in treating other forms of dehydration, especially in older people who are at a high risk for intravenous fluid overload. How can we change that perspective?
Yes. So basically, whenever we talk of ORS, people generally believe that ORS is meant only for small children. But the fact remains that ORS works as well in adults also. And up till the second degree of dehydration, it can be treated with ORS if started judiciously at the right time, and they will not require IV fluids. So it's as useful in adults because of, say, diarrhea, vomiting, or any other causes, as it is useful in children. So this myth or misconception has to be removed from the minds of people as well as doctors, that the use of ORS is as useful and as effective in adults as compared to children.
Dr. Indu, we know that there are various brands misleading by the name of ORS. What advice would you like to offer to our audience in this regard? What should they look out for while opting for ORS?
So if a person takes an ORS from the shelf, it should have the correct amount of sodium, the correct amount of glucose, as my co-panelists have pointed out, and it should have the correct osmolality, and it should be diluted in the correct strength when she takes it at home, especially if she does not take the ready-made ORS. We currently have Tetra packs which are ready-made, which solves this problem. But we have parents who will not dilute it properly. Either they will over dilute it and under dilute it. So that's also very important, because that really causes a lot of harm and a lot of side effects rather than causing its effect. Actually, for a layman, if you just look at a WHO labeled ORS, that would serve the purpose. This comes in two sizes, which has already been highlighted. So if it is a smaller sachet, it has to be diluted in 200 ml. If it is a larger sachet, it has to be diluted in 1 liter of clean potable water. If the child is vomiting, hold on for some time and then again start re-administrating in small quantities. So a parent should look at the WHO mark on it. It should be a low osmolar ORS. It should be diluted correctly, and it should be diluted in clean potable water.
Noted, Doctor. Dr. Tilak, one common practice is to have a sugary, fizzy, or carbonated drink when someone is dehydrated. What happens when we consume them, and how do they worsen the diarrhea or the dehydration further?
Dr. Indu has very rightly placed on board that it is the key to ORS is the right concentration of every single ingredient. The osmolarity of glucose in WHO ORS is 75 millimoles per liter. When you talk of other things which people try and use instead of WHO standards, like fizzy drinks and carbonated drinks and whatsoever, they have a very high sugar content, and therefore they put great load on the intestines of the child who is already dehydrated and withdraw fluid from his system to the intestines. So instead of rehydration, they start making him more dehydrated. Our purpose is that the fluid from intestine along with sodium should enter in the system. While these drinks that you have specified would bring fluid from the system back to the intestines and make the diarrhea worse. Therefore, they should not be accepted as a replacement for WHO. The replacement of WHO ORS is only WHO ORS and nothing else.
Dr. Indu, how can communities be involved in this process?
The most important thing here is education. Okay, the first is educating the mother, and then of course awareness in the society, in the environment. So this education is the must. So a family and there are studies to show if the mom is educated, the mortality of children is much lower. So education is the most important thing here. Then we must create awareness in the society at large. So it could be with channels like you, like you're doing right now, which again reaches out to the masses to tell them about education about ORS. At hospitals, we can actually make pamphlets, and while as doctors we counsel each patient, that is also giving education to the parent, to the family. And then this is how in the environment we can spread awareness. Of course, the media, WhatsApp, it could be any electronic media, is a very good source. Today everybody is on WhatsApp. So if we make a pamphlet, or if a note, something like an information is percolated through WhatsApp about simple use of ORS and when to use it, it really will go even up to Leh Ladakh and right up to Jammu Kashmir and down south to the tip of our country, Kerala. So that's how quickly it percolates. So we have to use all these medium, the television, and I think you guys are doing a great job by percolating this information. So education is the key. That's how we can involve the society.
Dr. Jain, that brings me to the last question, that how can communities and individuals be empowered to recognize the signs of dehydration and administer ORS appropriately, especially in resource-constrained settings, and seek timely medical assistance?
Okay. So there are three types of dehydration which we encounter in a case of diarrhea. The first and foremost is no dehydration, in which the child has got loose motions, but otherwise is active, playful, is passing urine, has no increased thirst, and the eyes are not sunken. Here, what we have to give is fluid, which is known as a replacement therapy. In the second type of dehydration, which we call it as some dehydration, again ORS helps, and the child can be managed very well in home. And the child in this condition has got, again, if the child becomes irritable, is lethargic, becomes very thirsty, the sunken eyes, and the child has started passing less amount of urine. And we calculate in this age group, if below to 2 years and above the age of 2 years. In below the age of 2 years, we give around 500 ml of ORS in 3 to 4 hours. In the age group above 2 years, we give around 1 liter of fluid in first 3 to 4 hours, this is oral fluid, this is ORS. And this not only corrects the deficit, but also takes care of the replacement. Now, we have to warn the parents that if the child doesn't improve, the child is not taking orally, the child is vomiting, is becoming more lethargic, the urine output has decreased, then the child is going into something which is more serious, and you have to consult a medical practitioner, you have to get the child admitted. And in the severe type of dehydration, in which the child becomes more unconscious, the child's urine output decreases further, the limbs become cold and clammy, there's tachycardia, the heart rate increases. This is the condition when we get severe dehydration, the child requires IV fluids. But again, very important point is not just dehydration which we have to correct. Emphasis should also be given on the nutritional aspect. And in any child who is less than 6 months or 6 months old and who has got diarrhea and is on breastfeeding, the breastfeeding should continue. Nutrition not only improves the overall condition of the child, but nutrients are important to fight against diarrhea. And it also gives a lot of fluid which is in an aseptic condition. Any drink which contains a lot of sugar, which contains a lot of sorbitol, because this further increases the volume of the stool. And so Other than this, what is more important, we have to tell the community that it is important now to give rotaviral vaccine, which is available in most of the government setup. And this, if the child has received the full dose of rotaviral vaccine, it prevent admission and death. And another important vaccine which has to be given is measles, which is again a very important complication of measles will be gastroenteritis.
And with that, it's a wrap. Thank you for joining us on this special presentation, Electral Presents Hydration for Health Season 2. Today, we delved into the significance of oral rehydration solution and its life-saving potential in treating dehydration caused by various factors, including diarrhea. We had the privilege of hearing insights from esteemed experts, Dr. Indu Khosla, Dr. Raj Tilak, and Dr. Hemant Jain, who shed light on the importance of understanding ORS's composition, its role in combating dehydration, when to seek medical attention, and its effectiveness beyond diarrhea. Thank you, doctors, for your valuable time and all those insights. As we conclude this episode, let us remember the importance of ORS in preventing dehydration related complications and strive to spread awareness and access to this life saving solution. Thank you for being with us, and we look forward to bringing you more insights in the future.